Hey, what's up guys? John from Mongo Fishing. So today I'm here on the Monster Bass channel to talk to you guys about jerkbaits, specifically the Baker Lures JLD series that was in this month's box. So let's get into it. All right guys, so like I said, my name is John from Mongo Fishing and this is the Monster Bass channel. Now if you're new to the Monster Bass channel, the Monster Bass channel is dedicated to make you a better bass angler, a better angler as a whole. Right? So if you want to learn to become a better fisherman, hit the subscribe button right down there along with the bell notification button so you get notified every single time Monster Bass puts out another video. My channel, Mongo Fishing, will be linked in the description below. I dig it if you came over and check me out also. But let's get in to this. I guess let's just get to do it. All right, so rod, me personally, when it comes to specific rods, I think some techniques you need a rod specific, a technique specific rod, and then other techniques you don't. And jerkbaits are one of those things where a jerkbait rod definitely does help. However, you know what? I'm not going to use my jerkbait rod. I was going to tie it on a jerkbait rod, but like I said, you don't necessarily need a specific rod for the technique. So instead of using my Denali lithium jerkbait rod, I'm going to use a Denali ATAX, which is a lower price point general purpose rod. That's what I'll use, because a general purpose rod, there's probably going to be more of you guys that have general purpose rods anyway than technique specific rods. So that's what we'll go with. This is a medium or a medium heavy. Fast action is what you want for sure. If you use a jerkbait rod, they're typically a little lighter. They're like, you know, they're mediums or even lights and fast action. You want a really tippy rod. You want it to be able to give for these bass. Any treble hook bait, you want a rod that can give really easy, okay? So that fast tip means that the tip bends really quick. Sorry guys, I'm sick, I have a cold. I apologize for my voice. So when we're saying medium or medium heavy and fast, what we're saying is medium power, fast action. The action is what makes the tip bend quick. So a fast action rod gets really, really tippy versus a moderate would bend deeper back here. The most important thing with jerkbaits is that every motion starts and stops on slack line. So let me show you. Start out there, reel it down to whatever depth you want, and then pop, pop, slack line, pop, 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 pop. That's all you're doing. Pop, pop, slack line, pop, pop, pop. Doesn't matter if you pop it once, twice, 3 times, doesn't really matter. Every motion starts and stops with a slack line. If you reel up and come tight on your line, what happens is your bait starts creeping. And you don't want that. You want this jerkbait to dart and just die. Dart, dart, die. That's all you're trying to do. So let's put you on chest and let's go to work. It'll look like somewhere out that way. Again, guys, every motion starting and stopping from a slack line, right? See that? Pop, pop. And then the rod, the bait's just sitting there dying, basically. It looks like a shad that's darting, dart, dart, and then dies. Let's move around. Let's get over to that point. I'm not pulling the rod, right? I'm snapping the wrist. Snap, snap. Snap, snap. Snap, snap, snap. You basically pop it, give it a couple seconds to sit, depending on the time of year and how active the bait are and how active your bass are, etc. Wintertime, or you know, colder the water, the longer you want to sit. You might let it sit 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever. All right guys, so let's talk color and size for a minute, okay? So I like to focus on like 3 primary colors. I like a white, an ledgy bone or secret shad sort of looking one where there's purple and chartreuse, and then like a natural color, something You know, like this is Pro Blue, right? Something that's pretty natural looking. Like those are the three that I'm gonna have of any brand of jerkbait that I have that I truly like. I'm gonna have those colors. Size, I like to go small in the fall and then bigger as we go on, right? So earlier on in the fall, right? Like late summer, early fall, whatever, little guys like this little 75 millimeter dude. And then of course this jerkbait that we got is like a 90, about a 90 for the size. I don't know, I'm kind of eyeballing it. And then as you get later on in the year, I start moving into the winter, I start moving into the 110s. So that's how I do it. Small in the fall, and then as the year goes on, my baits get bigger for jerkbaits. Hook sharpness on jerkbaits is super important. It is so insanely important, it's not even funny. When fish eat these jerkbaits, what they do is they'll come up and they'll inhale it and then spit it back out. And you'll never know that fish was on there unless he grabs it and goes back down and you can see the bite, or unless he hooks himself. So it's imperative that you have insanely sticky, sharp hooks so that when he spits it back out, he gets a hook in his mouth. All right guys, so there's the problem. See all that bait? It's all super tiny, and those bass want nothing to do with anything that's not that size. This is massive wads of bait down there. I mean, so far all I'm doing is getting him to come up and look at it. Nothing's wanting to eat it. Out there, I'm gonna throw this little tiny swim bait because I think that's the key right now. I think they're keyed in on such small stuff that it doesn't matter if I throw that jerkbait or not. There it is. It's exactly, he just pulled. It's exactly what it is, guys. They're keyed in on such small stuff that they won't eat that jerkbait, but I tie on this little tiny net head with a swim bait on the back, and they smoke it on the first cast. Guys, make sure when you're doing this, you vary your cadence, right? So like, throw it out, reel it down to the depth you want, pop, 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 right? Vary it. But everything starts and stops on slack line. Snap, 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 right? Everything starts and stops on slack. All right, guys, so 2 hours have passed of me chasing these fish out, you know, trying to live scope them, right? Or in this case, active target. And all these fish that I see out here offshore are just keyed in on bait that is way too small, that these bass don't care about that jerkbait. And to prove it, I threw that little swim bait and on the very first cast got bit. So let's move inshore. There we go. There's one, guys. Keep him down. No idea where he's at. I don't think he's very big either. I think he's probably a little guy. Oh, he's decent. Oh, he's football, man. It's a nice little fish. How's that, guys? Hopefully it's still recording. Yeah. Nice little guy. Look how fat he is. All right, let's get back to fishing. All right, guys, so basically what happened was all those fish that I was fishing for offshore were keyed in on little tiny bait, and it didn't really matter if I threw the jerkbait at them or not. They weren't going after it. And this same scenario happened to me last week on Norfolk Lake in northern Arkansas, and then the week prior on Grand Lake in Grove, Oklahoma. The fish were all keyed in on little tiny bait, and I could not get bit on anything other than really small swim baits for the most part. Some of my better quality, dirt shallow on some bigger crankbaits, but for the most part, I had to downsize. You know, I caught trout underneath the Norfolk Dam on that jerkbait, but not on camera, and that's because in practice I went out and I threw this thing on some really long points, main lake points that were covered in bait, and there was a bunch of smallmouth on them too, and they would not eat it. And then I put on a little tiny 2.8 size swim bait and caught a smallmouth on the first cast, or maybe second cast, and then like 2 casts later, and I was like, okay, well that's what I'm gonna be doing for the tournament. And then went home that night back to the Airbnb, and I threw that jerkbait around and caught trout. You know, I didn't really think much about it. I just figured the trout were eating whatever shad were washing out from the dam, and so that's probably why they didn't care on the size. But I get out here and these bass are keyed in on little tiny bait, and so this jerkbait was too big for right now. You got to go small in the fall, and as the season gets a little longer, it's going to start being a little better jerkbait, if that makes sense. It'll still catch fish right now, as you saw, but I just think, you know, this will probably work better later on in November or possibly in December. And then again, maybe not, depends on the lake that you live at and how your fish, what they're keyed in on right now in the first place. So, you know what guys, thank you guys very much for watching. You guys, if you guys are new to the Monster Bass channel, hit the subscribe button right down there along with the bell notification buttons. You guys get notified every single time Monster Bass puts out another video. My channel, Mongo Fishing, will be linked down in the description, probably, possibly, maybe, I don't know. I'd dig it if you came over and checked me out also. Again guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, get on the water, be safe, and go catch a monster bass.